What's up, everyone? Nick Lauer here, CEO and founder of Short Form Empire. I'm here with Mychele Bisson. Got that right?
Yes.
Perfect. And we are going to dive into a few things. But before I do that, a quick intro about Mychele. She got into real estate only 4 years ago. She has a portfolio over $20 million. She's a big family person, as we can see here. And she broke her husband out of corporate America with real estate. So tell me real quickly, how did you get into the real estate world?
Oh, well, it was kind of a fluke. So when 2020 was going on, COVID was happening, everybody was home. We were really enjoying our time together. It was kind of one of those things where I was talking with some friends who were investors, and they had just up and moved everything to Tennessee. And so we had them for dinner one night, and my husband, after they left, was like, we could totally do that. And I was like, oh, we could totally do that. And I heard that differently than he did. He thought, we'll look into it. And I thought, oh, we're now investors. So the next day I went out and actually bought our first house without him knowing while he was golfing, and called him later and said, hey, we bought a house. We're going to rent it out. Everything's going to be fine. And I hung up the phone.
Oh my gosh.
And that actually started off. So we started off with our first single family home. It was $700 that we were making extra a month. 2 days after, I actually put in the offer on that house, so I hadn't closed it yet. 2 days later, I had my first contract. I had my first deposit. And that was so easy that I went out that day and bought another one and put in an offer. Did the same thing. So I closed both those houses on the same day and had tenants moving in that night. And I just kept doing that for the next 9 months.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I want to jump more into the real estate stuff in a second, but obviously we're here because we partnered together. Why is it so important for you to jump into personal branding and make content? What is your end goal? Why are you investing into that?
Well, there's a couple of things. One, I've actually been able to do what most people dream about doing. I've been able to build myself a job that I can work on my own terms. I've been able to get my husband out of a multiple six-figure income that he was doing in corporate America and move him into a comfortable lifestyle where we're actually, none of our lifestyle has changed at all. And we actually decided to build a company together. And I think that is one of the coolest things. I get to be in this space with somebody that I trust most in the world and that I love and adore, and that we can actually build our future and our family's future and our family's legacy and be on the same page every day together and just work together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So filming today, because this is the first time you've actually really jumped into content.
Yeah.
Were you nervous or anything?
Very much so.
How so?
You know what? I think you see all these people on Facebook and Instagram that build all this content or whatever, and they just seem like they've got it all together. And that is not what I felt like I was going into. I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to have all these outtakes of me going, bleh.
Actually, we don't have a lot from this at all.
Well, we do have that one.
We have one, but in comparison to some other partners we have, sometimes you're like, I don't even know what they just said. We're going to have to start it back from 10 minutes ago.
Well, that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Because I really honestly and it was because it's just a weird thing, right? We partner up. I don't really know you guys.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we're spending 2 days together.
And eating a lot of food.
And barbecue. Now you know what burnt ends are.
Burnt ends, yes.
Right? I didn't know
Yes.
what they were either before I got here and got into an RV space. I had no idea. But then I introduced myself to them, and now we're really good friends.
Now we're obsessed.
Right? I saw you last night eating those things.
Oh, that's all I ate. I just kept looking over.
I know.
And
You
grabbed
stole
it.
the bowl.
Hey, let's not exaggerate. So why is it so important for you to start pushing out consistent quality content?
Well, for a few reasons. One, I want to give all the stay-at-home moms out there the realization that you can do this. I want to give all the families out there the realization that, there is a better way for you to do things to buy back your time. I'm also, in a unique space that a lot of people don't realize is a real estate cash flowing business, which I think is kind of cool because I didn't realize it either. And, I want people to see that they can do a couple of things. They can either learn to invest themselves and I can teach them how to do that, or they can invest with me and I can just give them mailbox money.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that's the beauty of it too. And that's why I like partnering with so many different industries, is because at the end of the day, it's attention for any business now. You need attention. Apple chases for your attention. Samsung, or even the little mom and pop coffee shop to sell their lattes. They're all chasing for attention. And it's crazy how over time marketing has completely shifted to this little screen. And
It
all it
really
does is takes 3 to 5 seconds to grab someone, and now they're in your program, or now they're an investor, or now they're sitting here in a fire with you
at a campfire in the
Yeah.
middle of Missouri.
Yeah.
I think that when I was growing up, we had commercials. And now that we stream everything, we don't have to watch them anymore. And it really did shift the way that things were advertised and the way that you get people in. How do they know that you have anything going on? And so when we moved into things being on social media, I mean, I'm a sucker for it all the time. I'm scrolling through Instagram and they've got the coolest, anti-aging pill. And I'm like, I'm all in. Let's buy that.
Yes.
Or just anything. Everything comes through there. And it's so fast with technology. I think you have to be the one that grabs the attention. Otherwise, you're going to falter because it's just so easy when you're not in social media to not see those things. So how do
Absolutely.
you get people to your content?
Yes. One analogy we use for some people that are like kind of on the fence, they're like, imagine this. Imagine you go to a conference next year and you're super excited and you're there networking with people, but you sit there on the front row and the first speaker is your competition and they come out and speak. But they weren't your competition last year. The only difference is they started posting content and everyone naturally attracted to them instead of you because no one knew who you were.
Correct.
They didn't know you, like you, or trust you.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a huge deal. There are lots of people that are investors. There's lots of people who have their own funds. There's lots of people who invest even in this particular space, the RV parks. But you could fade into the background and do it quietly. And I've seen people actually, now that I've been researching this whole asset class for the last year and everything that I've been doing to like learn everything about it. And I find these people who have like 90 parks or 40 parks or whatever. And I'm like, where were these people? Why do I not know them? Why have I never heard of these people? And then like you do see like some of the other ones that, have like 1 or 2 parks and you know all about them.
Right.
And so I think it's interesting, but you do definitely know about the corporations that have the parks.
Right.
So how do you compare to the corporations? Like, how do you go up against Jellystone? How do you go up against KOA? The only way to do that, and the easiest way to do that for any mom and pop business or even small, ventures like mine, is to go onto social media and to show people, like, look at what I'm doing. And how many people out there don't know that they want to be invested in you or they want to know more about RV parks until they actually see somebody doing it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
One quote my mentor gave me a year or so ago is, people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. And I see that as like, okay, how's that applicable to content? Well, you can sit here and talk to the camera of why I'm the best RV whatever, or I'm the best real estate agent, but no one's going to care. What they truly care about is your values, what you enjoy, the things that you do, the things that you don't do, the things that you don't like. And I think to add on to what you're saying is, I believe there's going to be a big shift of like corporation versus like individual personalities. Is people in the world of attention and through all this noise, they're wanting connectivity. It's like, you think of a big corporation, you don't get that. You get like the black and white. But if you get someone like you that loves shoes or loves food or loves like family time, that's going to naturally attract people over to that versus the whole entire corporation side of things.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Especially like, I mean, you've been with me the last 2 days, and
it's been amazing.
A new camper that comes in, and I personally go up and talk to them, and I find out what they're doing and how they're coming back and how I can help them, and that gives them a completely different feel. It's not the same as, if you're going to a Jellystone and you know that, somebody's just coming up to say, hey, like, do you need me to help you hook up?
Yeah.
Me, I'm like, oh, what are you doing in town? Yeah. What can I help you with? Like, do you guys have plans? Where are you from? Are you visiting family? Like, we have these really honest conversations, and I get to know them personally. And I love that. So it's definitely, I think we've gotten to a point where everybody has shifted away from that, and now we're getting back to it.
And so why is it so important for you to be so intentional with people on that level?
Because I like people. People are good. Like, it's just good to care about somebody. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that I have people who come back every year to the same place because they want to see us again. And instead of going to the campground down the street, they want to be here because they understand the values that we have.
Yeah.
And I love that. And when they travel around the country to go stay in any of the parks, they're going to choose our park over somebody else's because they understand what kind of service we want to give them. They understand our principles and our integrity behind it, and they understand how we feel about them.
Sure.
So,
So, as being a high performing female in the industry, has that been difficult in any facet?
um, I don't think I have actually had any real major. I think one of the big things is that I am very big on knowing what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are. And I'm not somebody who is like, "Oh, let's go work on my weaknesses and make my weaknesses stronger." I'm very much a let's work in our strengths.
Hmm.
So if I know that my strengths are the connection that I have with people and bringing people back in and like making people feel safe and knowing that this is what I stand for, that is a strength that I'm always going to work in. And if you don't like it, then that's just, we're just not meant to be partners or
Right.
work together. And that's okay. I don't wish you bad. I just wish you well, and we're all going to be fine. Because not everybody can work together. It's just the nature of the beast. But I also bring on people that I know are really good at my weaknesses. And so I have people who work with me that they are very, very good at system implementations. They're very, very good at numbers and spreadsheets. They're very good at acquisitions and closing. Um, those are not necessarily my strengths.
Right.
My strengths are always the connection that I have personally with people. So whether you're an investor, a seller, a buyer, one of my team in management, running one of my parks or running one of my resorts, at the end of the day, you know that if you want to have a personal conversation with you, I'm always going to take the time to stop and have that conversation with you, because there's nothing more important than the person that's at the other end.
Absolutely.
And that to me is everything about my business.
Hmm.
It may not be everybody else's business, but it's my business. And that's the joy of what I get to do, is I get to run it the way that I want to. So, so yeah, I don't necessarily think I'm having any more struggles than anybody else. I think that I'm just looking at things differently than everybody else. So, but I do think that that's why I get a lot of deals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Naturally attracted. Yeah, with your values. So, you've been in the space for 4 years now, which, I mean, that's not really a lot of time. I don't think that's a big chunk of my life, but
Right? I know.
but I don't think that's too much time. What is one of the biggest lessons you've learned so far in building this $0 to $20 million empire in on?
Stabilizing. I think there are a couple of big lessons that I've learned. One is focus. In order to get into anything like this, you can really paralyze yourself by learning too much. And I think when you go into it and you're like, no, I haven't learned enough, you're actually not taking action. You think you're taking action because you're learning, and it's always good to learn. I think it's a great thing to learn. I think you should join mentorships, read the books, do all the things. Absolutely. But until you actually jump off that ledge and actually dive into it, you really don't know what you're capable of, and you don't know what you know. And so there's a lot of things that you learn buying your first asset and cash flowing it. One, you learn if you're cut out for it. I've known some people who've done it and they're just not cut out for it. They don't want to have anything to do with it again. Two, you really learn, one, growth management, but also how to stabilize things before you move on. And you have to focus. My first piece of advice to anybody who gets in this space is find one thing that you want to do, whether it's a single family home, whether it's a short-term rental, whatever it is. Find that one thing that you want to do and focus on it for 6 to 12 months. Learn everything that you can about that one asset class. Just learn whatever you can. Learn it, perfect it, run it, get it to a point where it's stabilized and it can pretty much run on its own before you move into anything else.
Yeah.
And so that's really how we did things, is that we moved really fast and quick, but we always focused in one area, stabilized it before we moved on to the next area. And then when we stabilized that, we'd move on to the next area. And that's how we've been able to do the long-term rentals, the short-term rentals, build a resort, and buy RV parks, and build up this portfolio over the last 4 years of over $20 million, because we learned to move and just stabilize each asset and learn as much as we can. So if you come back and talk to me about a long-term rental, I can give you all this information about long-term rentals, even though that's not the space I'm in right now.
Right.
But I know all this knowledge because that's what I focused on for a year and a half. And because of that, I was able to move into bigger things. The great thing is that because I did stabilize that first portfolio, that actually pays all of our bills.
Wow.
And that gave me the freedom to move into bigger assets, that I could take more risks and I could do more things. And I think that was a really important thing to know.
You know, it's interesting because when I started my journey, it's been what, over 2 years now. I spent all the money on like the courses and mentorship and stuff. But there was, some mentorship that I only did consume like 30% of it because I knew exactly what I wanted and what I needed. And so the other, 70% was just noise. And then what happened is when I started my company, I focused on one industry at first. I'm like, I know I can serve everyone, but I focus on just podcasts at first.
Yeah.
And I learned them and their systems. Then I pivoted towards, I want to say like fitness coaches or like that industry. Then it was more towards loan officers, then real estate agents. And then I was able to understand overall my process and refine my process to then be able to apply it to everyone. But it's interesting because I kind of did the same strategy when I started as well.
Yeah. You jumped in, you learned falling forward, and then you focused. Yeah, but that's how you do it. Like, you don't know the million ways that you could fail until you actually are in a position where you can actually do it. And then you're working really hard to not fail. And like, that's the thing, is it's not, the focus is the thing that's important, because I see so many people who come in and they're like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. And every week it's something different. And I'm like, how did you ever figure anything out? Like, did you ever move? And a lot of them don't move forward. And the reason they don't move forward is because they don't have anything to focus on. So one day they want to do long-term rentals because they're like, oh, I heard this podcast and these were great. The next day it's I want to buy an RV park because your podcast sounded so great. I want to do that. The next day it's a short-term rental. I want to buy 6 short-term rentals because I heard another podcast and it was great to do that. And we've learned with what we've done is that we have to block all the other noise out. And so when we go into anything, even when it's like a mentorship, we have a very strategic plan on what we want to get out of that. So when we invest into something like that, we know this is what we want to extract from it. And if we get this, we've got our value.
Yeah.
And so when we joined a certain mentorship that we joined into to learn creative finance, we knew exactly we want to get this out of it. Everything else is gravy. Yeah. And so we learned how to creatively finance, and the community part of it was just the gravy part of it. And so it was great because now as we're jumping in, we went into that. 2 weeks later, landed our first deal, probably watched, I don't know, a handful of modules. Definitely did not watch all of them because there's hundreds of them. Which is great because anything you want to learn is out there. But I think people get so stuck in the fact that there are so many that they watch them all. And then they think, oh, I'm learning, so I'm doing something, but you're not doing anything.
Right. Not implementing.
You're not implementing. And the money comes from the implementing. It doesn't come from the learning.
You know what's interesting is I think I've seen that in my industry as well, because I help other people with their content agencies. But I've seen from the first part you said, they're like, I'm going to offer filming, and then I'm going to offer editing, and then I'm going to offer email marketing, and then I'm going to offer paid ads. And it's like, you're actually, by trying to consume and learn and offer everything right off the bat, I don't think there's anything wrong maybe 5 to 7 years down the future. That's a whole different conversation. But you're actually doing a disservice to yourself, but also the people you partner with.
Correct. Because
you're not focusing on that IP. You're not focusing on the process, which is what people are actually investing into you for, is your process.
Yeah.
It's saving them time, energy, making them money, but also magnifying their message at the same time.
Well, if you look at like your business in particular, like you said it yourself, you went into it and you focused on one thing and you perfected that thing. So then when you moved on to the next thing that you were going to add, you already perfected this. So you could do this without even thinking about it. So now you're learning a new thing to add on to it. So then you learn this thing and perfect that before you learn the next thing to perfect that. And all the value that you've added to those people that you've brought in along the way, you've also learned to stabilize each one of them as you've gone. And so that is why they're so successful. And that is why you're so successful, because what you've really done is you've stabilized each asset to build onto the next asset so that you could grow and scale. And as you're growing and scaling, you're adding the right people in place.
Absolutely.
So that as you're moving on, you're leaving this trail of professionals behind you that are taking care of the things behind you.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to do.
Well, and that's the beauty of it, because up front, I mean, you have to do like everything. You have to be the marketing, you have to be the sales, you have to be everything, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where you master it yourself, and then you delegate. And then, like you said, you stabilize. And then when you go to the next phase of your company, you've got to analyze, okay, what do I need? What is the new gap?
Yeah.
Okay, then you go find it or attract it. fill it in, stabilize, and then just keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yeah. And the truth is that everything builds on each other, right? So you didn't have to
Absolutely.
learn everything from scratch because you've already known this part.
Right.
And you took what you learned here and you added it into here. So this was easier to learn.
Yeah.
So you could move faster.
Yeah.
And then you take it into the next one. Now you've got knowledge from 2 areas. So now you've taken that into the 3rd area, which now you've mastered that even quicker because you've already had the base. And as it goes, you just get going faster and faster, and it just keeps going, and you just learn them faster and faster and stabilize the right people.
Absolutely.
All day long, like on my Instagram, because I've started posting little things here and there, I've started getting all these offers for come work with me. Like, let me help you go viral. Let me be your social media person. Like, let me do all these things. And one of the things that I really liked about you personally was that when I actually went out to vet you and like look at your stuff, you were just so genuine. And I was like, he's somebody that looks cool that I could hang out with. Like,
Yeah.
he seems like it would be fun to just kind of sit around a campfire and just like shoot the breeze with.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because it's kind of controversial. A lot of people think on their personal brand, I have to always talk about me and talk about how I'm great. But like we talked about, what naturally attracts people to you is what you value, what you do, what you don't like, and what you don't do, right? And so it's kind of controversial for me as a content agency owner. I don't post content 24/7. Should I? Probably
Yeah.
be a little smart. But when I do post, I make sure those pieces are meaningful and I make sure it actually attracts people. And at the end of the day, it pulls back the curtain. I'm not going to sit here and like present myself as like, I'm some amazing content agency owner and I'm going to take you to the moon and you should only work with me. No, I'm going to show you who I am,
Yeah.
what I've gone through. And if that aligns with you, that's all I want. I just want 5 meaningful partners and that's all I need.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, think about the value that you add to the 5, like those 5 meaningful partners.
yeah.
Like all of that, like there's, it's great to have a million people that you work with or whatever and all this money that comes in, but how much value are you actually giving each of those people?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, would you be able to go sit at their property and hang out with them
Right.
and shoot their content? Like, do you know how much value that is that we actually have like a personal like connection where we actually can sit and talk together and have a good time?
Yeah.
Like that to me is amazing because think of all the things that you draw out of somebody when you actually personally know them.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is more meaningful. It's more important. Like I said, when I meet my guests at the park, it is more important for me to connect with them because I know that they'll connect with me and will get them back and
Yeah.
again and again.
Absolutely.
And I would rather know their names and the names of their grandkids than have 500 people fighting to get in here every day where I don't even know who they are.
Right. Well, I think too, it's the unquantifiable value as well. It's like you told me your daughter's a dancer. Well, what if I run into someone one day and they need her or they
Yeah.
need their connect to her? I wouldn't have known that if I didn't take the intention and time to actually hear about you and extract that value.
Yeah.
So,
Well, actually it goes like this just happened to me like last month. I was there was a group in one of the mentorships that I was talking to. They were going through Colorado, so they stopped to actually hang out. So they actually came and stayed with us one night, and as I'm getting to know the person that she had brought with him, he was a content or not a content. He was a mind coach.
okay.
Never met him before. Saw some of the things that he did, not really like invested. So it wasn't like, I knew who he was. So he comes and sits with me. And as we're sitting there and talking, and I'm just like, everything that comes out of him is intentional. And he's such a genuine spirit that I couldn't help but like be all into what he was saying. And he was just so present.
Yeah.
And I thought, how cool is it when people are that present with you? And so I introduced him to somebody else that I was like, I may not need what you have right now, but I do know somebody else that does need what you have. And that gentleman actually signed up with him to do his coaching thing. But then like last night, as we were talking and I got to know you guys a whole lot better.
Yeah.
What ended up happening is I actually sent your information to both of those guys because I was like, you guys need to know him.
Oh, wow. I
And
appreciate
so
that.
it's not even just about the content though, but it's just the genuine connection of good people.
Absolutely.
And so that was what it was, is you may be able to use the services now or not, but I do genuinely think you guys should know each other.
Absolutely. And I think, once again, because we both operate the same way, we only focus on meaningful people and meaningful partnerships. And I think that is what separates us as a company and our culture on our side from other companies as well, is the fact that we don't, like you said, we don't need all these partners. We don't need all this stuff. We just want to partner with people that we can truly give value to and extract and magnify their message. And
And messages that you believe in.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing because at the end of the day, it is your name
Yeah,
and it's your reputation.
absolutely.
And, like whatever I'm putting out into the universe, I don't want anything to come back on me that I'm going to regret later, and so that's always a big thing for me too, is
Yeah.
that like when I put stuff out there, I want to know that the people that I'm helping or the people that I'm in contact with, if they're getting value from it, great, you're my people.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Yeah, and one last thing is I've seen in my space as well is like the scarcity mindset business or content agency owners is like, say they were working with someone and they were in the real estate world and then they heard that they have another client that they connect to. A lot of people are afraid to do that because they're like, what can I get out of it? And it's like, you don't need to get anything out of it. You need to be meaningful and abundant and provide that value. And I think what a lot of people don't understand, whether they're young or old, is that is like the third and final step to networking is sharing your network. I don't think people understand how valuable it is to share this arsenal that you've been blessed with other people
Yeah.
to help grow them up instead of being, scarce and holding your fists up.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, I do in my space, like one of the people that I actually sent your information to last night would technically be considered a competitor because he wants to do RV parks and he is in the same space that I am.
Interesting.
But it wasn't something that I was like, oh, no, you can't do content like I do. You need to go like figure it out on your own. It was, no, you know what? I think this would be a really good space. Maybe you need to contact him.
Yeah,
And that's the thing is it's not about the competition. I want him to be successful too.
absolutely.
And like if I can see something that I can fill in a gap, it's going to come back and bless me at the end of the day anyway. Like it all comes around.
And you know what's interesting too? I just thought of this, especially with our process, because we're intentional. In our process, yes, there's certain black and white things, but the main variable is the partner in their industry and their talent and their stories.
Yeah.
So like when we partner, we try not to like step on toes, but if we're with someone in the same industry, it's okay because our process is extracting you and you're unique. And I
Yeah.
think that's almost the beauty as well. Is it's like, okay, maybe we work with another RV park investor, but their journey and their story is so much different. And that's going to hit maybe not the moms that were in your situation or single moms that
Yeah.
were in your situation. It's going to hit a different demographic. And I think that's like the beauty of it.
Well, and I mean, who knows? We might partner on something later. There might be
Exactly.
a large park out there that I can't take down by myself, and I need somebody else who's in the space who gets it.
So cool.
And so that's the thing is it's not all about just me.
Yeah.
I mean, what if this person over here wants to do this because they just want to buy the small, like 27 spot park because they just want to move their family on it and run it. That's
Yeah.
all, that's their whole dream. Like I said, everybody in this space does not necessarily want to build $20 million, $50 million, or $100 million. That might not be your thing. Maybe you just want to buy sneakers for your kids without worrying about it.
Yeah.
And I have that little secret sauce that gives you that opportunity to do that. Why am I the one that's blocking that from you? That's unfair. I've been in the space where it would have been great to be able to buy school clothes without having to budget for it or go on a family vacation without worrying about how much we spend. And how horrible am I as a person to block that from somebody else to have that same blessing?
Yeah.
So it's a huge thing for me where I think that there's enough out there for everybody and we can all collaborate as long as we are all working in our character and integrity and being honest and really just being good stewards of the gifts that we've been given.
Absolutely.
And if we can do that and we can bring people into our space that are the same, then how much more blessed are we?
And I think that's where you achieve true happiness is right there.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I do think that, how great is it at the end of the day, like, 5 years from now when we're all like, jumping on our jet to fly to Norway to go visit Nick
Let's go.
because that's what we can do at this point because we've all made enough money that all of our stuff runs itself.
Yeah.
And we've been able to give that opportunity to so many other people because of content that we made one day sitting in a Branson park
Crazy.
and the smoke was in your face.
Unfortunately.
So I don't know. I do think that is the amazing part about this entire process as I'm learning and going through all of this is I really do think that the fact that I can sit down with somebody else and help them change their life is so impactful. And the fact that I can bring somebody else in who can extract that so that people can understand what I'm trying to do. I mean, even like talking about what I want to do and what my goal is for each of the parks, like I want to give people jobs. I want to give people affordable places to live. I want to give families affordable vacations. And ultimately, it all leads into this thing of I want to help families pay for medical bills. You know, and even when we were talking about our stories, they're different stories, but they're really aligned.
Absolutely.
And we both kind of have a purpose that kind of stems from almost a similar story.
I know, and that's why I'm like, we're getting along so well because of food,
Right?
but other reasons as well. And yeah, that's kind of like my goal with the company as well. Is like you know a lot about my story now, but it's like I was offered the world. I was offered tens of thousands of dollars in free college, but I wanted to build my own thing. And I know there's so many other individuals out there, whether they're offered more or less or nothing, that are in the same position. And I want to, as a company, not only as a culture, but as opportunity, be this open arm of like, hey, you can come join us.
Yeah.
And also you can use your creativity without judgment. Obviously there's different parameters you have to stay in, but you can come join us and be a part of this and be in your full zone of genius and reach your highest holistic self because you're a part of this ultimately safe haven.
I think it's wonderful when you can bring people into your space and bring them onto your vision, and you've got people who have so many different strengths that are different than yours, and you can all align and build something together where everybody gets to benefit. And that's like one of our goals, like when we buy these parks, is how do we make sure that everybody's aligned? The seller, us as buyers, our investors, our managers, how do we all have the same vision for this one piece of property so that everybody's winning in the end?
That's so huge. Yeah, I had a talk with our creative director back there a bit ago because there was a lot going on and we were growing at the same time. And the way that I pictured it is like, hey, we're an engine. There's so many different gears and pieces, but if there's one little piece that's not aligned, it's going to clog, it's going to overheat. And that's why it's so important to have every single piece aligned, because if every piece is aligned, it can move properly and we can all move forward and we're all winning at the same time.
And you get to curate each piece of that. And that's the amazing thing. And so when you're done and you've built this massive empire,
no pun intended.
Correct. But you can look back on it and be proud of it. Do you know what I mean? And that's the thing that I think is cool, is when you can look back on it and be proud of what it is and be proud of each cog that you put in place to make sure that it would get to that point. And there's nothing in the background that you're like, oh God, I wish that, that part sucks. But
yeah,
this is the way that you curate everything so that as you're moving forward, this is exactly in line with what I want. And I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing. And I'm helping as many people as I can along the way.
Yeah, I think one thing I've been blessed with, whether I don't know to call it supernatural or not, it's like I can feel in my gut, because I know what I want and what's aligned, but I can feel in my gut the second, energetically, if one thing is not aligned.
Yeah.
And that's when my brain's like, we got to figure this out. We got to fix it ASAP.
Yeah. I think that that's definitely a really cool feature, because like I do that too. Like I get this intent, like I feel this intuition inside of me, like whether it's looking at a new property or dealing with a person or whatever, like it is just something inside that my stomach, it either clenches or it relaxes. And it's kind of like, okay, this is cool. And it makes it so easy and seamless, because I'm like, this is the way that it's supposed to be. And so when I know this is easy, this is the way that it's supposed to be, it makes it easier to go through the transitions and to find a way to make it happen. Where when I feel like something is not aligned, it's almost like my body like rejects it and I can't go near it.
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of a weird intuition that my body puts out, that I'm like, okay, this is not where I need to be. I need to look somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that door that closes that I was telling you, that sometimes that door closes because you're not ready to walk through it.
I guess one of the last things I have is, if you could give one message to the world, what would it be?
Oof, I've got a lot of messages for the world.
Or let's give a few, whatever you have.
No, I mean, I think if you were to go into like a real estate space or any kind of space where you want to build a business and you want to be successful at it, get the knowledge that you need, join the mentorships that you need, do the things that you need, but you actually have to do them. You need to jump, you need to implement. So you can get so wrapped up in learning things that you never actually move forward. And I think that's one of the most frustrating things that I see with people, is when they're like, I want to do all these things. And then you find out that they've been there for like 2 or 3 years waiting to do those things, and they've not done anything. And you're like, if you would just take a little bit of knowledge and jump, you can learn the rest along the way.
Yeah.
And it's not as scary as you think, because the first deal is the most terrifying deal that you will ever do in your life. My first $300,000 house, scariest thing I've ever done. And now I'm buying $8 million parks that I don't even think twice about.
Yeah, walk in the park, no pun intended.
No, truly, it really is. Like, and that's the thing, is that as you learn to grow and scale, you've realized that this is solid and I know what I'm doing. And if I just implement them everywhere else, then I can scale at a faster level and I can stabilize faster.
Yeah.
So, and the growth that you learn, we had this conversation, actually I had this conversation with your camera guy. It's the expansion of your mind. Yes. And so every day, if you're expanding your mind just a little bit by learning something new, you'll learn that your brain will never fit into the same box that it fit in before, and that you're constantly advancing forward because you're constantly expanding your brain.
Absolutely.
So
I think that's one thing I admire about you, because I think our paths crossed about 2.5 months ago, and I found you from one of our partners, their course and community, and you got connected with me, and you're like, I just need to do it. I just need to take the step. And then we talked about it, and then we made it happen, and then here we are. I think that's one thing I really admire about you. Although like content and kind of getting yourself out there and sharing some stories can be nervous, especially with this like machine in your face and lights and whatnot. That's what I admire, is like you just get to it, you make it happen. And then from that, the abundance in life that you want in reality, you're going towards, naturally attracts.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think that is definitely one of those things of being coachable. If somebody who is more successful than you says these are the steps that you need to take, you should listen.
Absolutely.
Like, that is the biggest thing, is you should listen. They're where they're at for a reason, and there's a reason why you're not there. So when you're like, oh no, I don't have to do that right now, and somebody who's more successful than you is saying, no, you really need to pay attention to these things, there's a reason behind it. There's a method to the madness. And if you're not listening to the person who knows, and I think that honestly is probably one of the best gifts that I have, is that I really do listen to those who know better than me, because there are a million people out there who know a lot more than I do. And I love that. And I would rather be the dumbest person in the room and learn from everybody than be the smartest person in the room and have a lot of fluff to talk about.
Absolutely.
So,
well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk, and appreciate you sitting here, and thank you for all the value and the meaningful time out here and the tons of food.
You guys got to camp.
And we got a lot of food. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for coming out and spending time with me on one of my parks. It was well, actually, spent time on 2 parks.
What's the name of this park if anyone wants to visit?
This one actually is in Branson, Missouri, and it's being repositioned, but it is called the Hideaway Campground and RV Retreat.
There you go. So if you're in Branson, this is the place to be.